Good evening, everybody. My name is Eric Schott, and I'm presenting tonight's Dynamic Dems, and this is called Politics 101, A Local Perspective, How You Fit In. In your packet, you have a specimen ballot, and some of you have a colored piece of paper. If you've got a blue piece of paper, I want you to fill that blank in. Politics is
local
and
complicated.
Complicated. Excellent answer. Now, some of you have a tan piece of paper, and politics is and because, so it's a complex sentence. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I will. Fill the blank in and tell me why you think that is the case.
Politics is how we self-govern.
I like that.
Because it's in the Constitution.
Anybody else?
Politics is local because what's closest to us is what's most important to us.
You'd think. You'd think that would be borne out in people who show up on the elections, which are local. So I think we can put any number of words in there because it's that kind of subject. I think we deal in it every day. We just don't realize it. Getting your child to perhaps do a chore, getting somebody to pay attention to you who you want them to pay attention to you and take you seriously. That's politics. It's every day. It's power, and there's different types of power, but that's what it's all about. Politics is just simply then codifying that because it's making us do things we don't want to do. If you want to smoke marijuana recreationally, it's not possible here in Pennsylvania, but in Colorado, it is. In politics, the government will ask you to go out and murder people. We call that war, but it's still perhaps forcing you to do something you never thought that you wanted to do. And, libertarians are of an ilk that they don't really want government telling them to do much at all. They want as limited as it possibly can be. Politics also utilizes certain tools that many times we'd rather not think about: coercion, manipulation, incentives, disincentives. One of the biggest hammers in the belt is fear. Unless you vote for me, this is what's going to happen to you. Your job's going to go elsewhere. This is what's going to happen, and you will be ruined. Stick with me. It's all going to be very, very nice. Us and them. Divisiveness is an issue also that is often in the tool belt. And I think, editorializing, he has shredded the fabric of this country to a certain extent. He's made things now okay, which were not okay before. And, he has done things as far as foreign policy that are of a great concern. I'm worried. And there are other people who are taking notes. And whether or not this can happen again, I hope not. So I think 2016 is a cautionary tale of what can happen when people who know better don't get involved. Now, in the long run, as John Maynard Keynes said, we're all going to die. And so really, shouldn't we spend our time, energy, and resources on our families, our careers, our hobbies, go to Walden Pond and contemplate Emersonian philosophy? Rather than some of this ugly stuff. But those of us with children and grandchildren, we have to take responsibility. So I think that's what brought you all out tonight and motivated me to create these 250 slides. So where do you fit in? And we're going to go from the most power down to local. And so the federal government has the most power, and there he is. And it's one man, one vote nationally. Then we come down to the state, where you can, with statewide elections, you can pick two people on a statewide basis. And we have our senior senator, Bob Casey, and he will be up in 2018. And then we have our junior senator, Pat Toomey, who just won. Continuing down from levels of power, we get to Congress. And what I'm showing you here is the congressional districts for where we live in Chester County. We are either in the 16th or we're in the 7th for the most part, I think, in this room. Just to put a face with a place, Lloyd Schmucker on the left is the 16th. That's Patrick Meehan. It should be the 7th. There are the 16th and 7th a little closer. It's just a hodgepodge lodge of congressional districts. You don't see many straight lines or compact districts. There's the 16th. There's the 7th. Gerrymandering is something that's been in the news recently with a movement in Pennsylvania called Fair Districts. This illustrates from left to right what can be done with redistricting. And the idea behind gerrymandering is you pack and crack. You pack together as many in one party as you can, acknowledging the fact that, yeah, they're going to get some districts, but you pack them all together. And then where you can, you crack the other party to try to dilute and get as many districts as you can. 2010 and 2014 across the country was a debacle for Democrats. After 2010, with redistricting, the Republicans really made it a science. Then we come farther down the line as far as power, and we get to state districts. Well, what do you mean I have a state senator? Well, you do in the General Assembly. Well, what do you mean the General Assembly? Well, it's the legislature in Harrisburg. And continuing, we get down to the state house districts, where we have representations as well. So we have representatives, use that term interchangeably. It'd be easier if we just called Lloyd Schmucker, Congressman Schmucker, and John Lawrence. We just call him Representative Lawrence. And there's Andy, our state senator. And we're continuing down. We get down to the county level. Chester County, the most affluent county in the state. Excellent county to live in, and the highest educational levels of the Philadelphia area. And there are 3 county commissioners. Kathy Cazzone is all the way to the right. She is the Democratic representative. Then we get the school districts. Do all these districts closely mirror other districts? Unfortunately, no. You can have different representatives and come into a room and talk about one thing, and that representative's not your representative. And you try to sort it all out, and it is very complicated. We get down to the township level. These are the townships that I'm dealing with tonight, and they are all of the Oxford School District, if we use a shorthand to explain what's going on, some of Octorara, and most of Avon Grove. For those of you in the Avon Grove community, we're missing London Britain, and we're missing Avondale. And we have a hierarchy as well in the Democratic Party. At the very top, of course, is the Democratic National Committee, then the State Committee, Chester County Democratic Committee, and we are fortunate tonight that we have the chair of the Chester County Democratic Committee. We have Brian McGinnis. And then the most local is Zone 3, and we have David Ross, who is the chair of Zone 3 with us tonight. So Zone 3, to make it more accessible and intelligible to people who want to get involved in local politics, we call it the Ox Grove Democrats, picking part of Oxford's name and part of West Grove. And it's made up of 15 municipalities, which I showed you with those 3 school districts. Some of the municipalities have gotten so big that on voting day, when you go to vote at your polling place, some of these have had to be divided up because it would just be a crush of people and they never get through the lines. So for instance, West Grove, London Grove, Oxford, East Nottingham, they've all split up. That's where we get to 20 precincts. Then we have 2 affiliated groups, and obviously here is one tonight, and Bob Ketchum does a wonderful job with the Dynamic Dems. After the November election, we just had people come to our zone meeting like we've never had people come to our zone meeting who really wanted to do something. So we have a group called Ox Grove Act Now. They've got a treasure trove of information. So do we have an election this year?
Actually, counting the primary, we have 2 elections every year.
Here we are, sometimes called off-year elections. And this is county, municipalities, school board, state courts. And if you look at that turnout, it can be as low as 18. It can go actually lower, but that's the average. Democrats, if they come out en masse, it's the only French I know, you can really change things. But President Obama used to talk about this all the time. We turn out on the presidential year, but those other 3, where are you? Whereas the Republicans, they are religious about it. They really show. What makes this election different besides you can vote for people you'll see in the grocery store, people you can get a phone call returned is that it also allows something called cross-filing. Some of you have a packet that has a specimen ballot attached. And I have the Republican, I have an R off to the right and D on the other side. And that's what, if you go to the primary, and you're all going to go to the primary this year, aren't you? When you go to the primary, that's what you'll see as a Democrat or Republican. And for instance, look for school director. You should see Bill Wood. Molly knows Bill. He is on both ballots. He is cross-filed. Let's talk about the county for a minute, and who better to talk about the county elections than the chair of the county party, than Brian McGinnis. So
I'm glad to be here. I thank Bob for having me here today. As Eric noted, we do have an election coming up. We have our county-wide election, but just to let you know, we have elections every 6 months, okay? Whether they be your state house elections or your local elections. And as Eric mentioned, politics, to fill in the blank, it's always local. So my goal is to make sure that Democrats vote in every election. And I think we do have an opportunity to build upon what happened in 2016. For the third time in county history, the Democratic candidate won. 1964, LBJ, 2008, Barack Obama, and 2016, Hillary Clinton. And I didn't think Hillary Clinton was going to win by 25,000 votes, but she did. She won 51 to 42%, which is amazing. A lot of you, I've seen you work on the campaign, did a great job of getting out the vote. But we have to keep that momentum going. And what that means is getting more and more people involved in the process and making this election a statement election in 2017. These 4 candidates right here are probably the best slate of candidates we've ever had. So you're going to be seeing a lot of these candidates at your events. You're going to see a lot of these candidates on social media as well, attending these events, meeting people. And the thing is, though, these candidates can't do it alone. Everyone in this room needs to make phone calls, knock on doors, contribute to campaigns, attend events, get other people involved. Now, also, we have judicial elections. And people don't realize how important those judicial elections are. When it comes to voter ID, when it comes to women's health care access, when it comes to right to work, when it comes to public school funding, we need Democrats on every level. Commonwealth Court, Superior Court, and Supreme Court, and especially with gerrymandering. And if people don't think that judicial candidates don't matter, all you have to do is read the news today. And what happened? The courts blocked Donald Trump's ban to sanctuary cities. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and by the way, that far Pacific island out there, right? The judges out there blocked his ban, his Muslim ban. So it's that simple if you want to explain people just how important these justices are. And they're very important right here in Pennsylvania when it comes to gerrymandering and when it comes to right to work legislation and especially voter ID. You know, the courts overturned that a couple of years ago. So we have a lot of good things going on within the county party. We had a great event on April 2nd with Governor Wolf because Chester County is now on the map. I mean, I think we were featured about 4 times nationally last year. We just had a big feature in the Philadelphia Inquirer, just how divided this county is. Today, this morning, I had an interview with PBS NewsHour about Chester County and what we're looking to do in Chester County and try to expand the map. So we're getting a lot of coverage here, and we're going to be a battleground county in next year, in the 2020 election as well. But I think the one thing that we can do today is if we want to send a message to Donald Trump and the Republican Party, we need to elect Democrats from the schoolhouse up to the courthouse. And we need to make sure that that happens. You know, again, they're going to pull out all stops in this election. But the one thing we have on our side is we have the emotion on our side, okay? And every single election is about emotion. Think about it. Barack Obama gave us hope and change. Donald Trump, he just capitalized on people's fears. And he won. Right now, We're about at 80% capacity for committee people, which is roughly around 365 out of 446 precincts. So we almost have someone for every single precinct throughout the county, which is unheard of. And so everywhere I go, I see crowds like this. And if anything, 2016 was the biggest wake-up call of all time, because it showed us that you cannot take any election for granted. And hopefully that we could have a great turnout on May 16th. And then after that, it's off to November, and we need to win there.
So here is a slide about electing judges in Pennsylvania. Some will be partisan election, and some will be simply retention after they've served their 10-year term. I think what's daunting to many people when they vote in local elections is the judges. It throws them off. They'll say, I haven't had time to research them. Help me, who do I vote for? So beyond 2017, then we go back to 2018, we have the midterms. Critical election, once again, as I mentioned, 2010 and 2014, we just got our clocks cleaned in the midterms. And all that hard work that Barack Obama had done went up in flames. He lost the Senate, governorships, the House. Turnout, again, is pretty bleak. Then back to local elections in 2019, and those people who are itching for a presidential election, then of course, 2020. And then it starts all over again. So some of the people who have come to the meetings have said, what can I do based upon time, energy, and resources, what you can do if you feel like you want to make a difference in this world of politics. You know, there's nothing better than a snarky tweet to make my evening. But then, of course, it all comes back, and it makes me feel so loathsome that, why did I do that? I hope they don't find me because they said they're going to, do terrible things. But it's something, it's keeping the chattering going, and you're keeping people honest in some places. Then the call, the mail, email, blog, letter to the editor. Letter to the editor it's going away. Calling is better than mail because you've tied somebody up. Some staff person, and when Congressman Schmucker comes back or Pat Toomey and nothing's gotten done because all they've done is answer phone calls, well, they notice. For gosh sakes, turn out in the general election. I know it can take time. You've got to arrange care for parents or children, and you've got to park the car, and it could be raining. You have to stand in line. It's not as easy as it made to sound in civics class. For goodness sakes, go to the primary. In some places, the primary was where it's at. If you were Machiavellian, you'd switch parties and vote more in the primary in this area, so to pick a weaker Republican candidate to go after. And sometimes you'll hear a term, super voters. These are highly prized people who never miss, and they help. We can count on them. They're going to show. So I call that the freshman or ninth grade workout. Then junior varsity. And this takes more time. And I know this past weekend there was a rally in Washington, D.C. that people rode down on a bus from this area, and it made a difference. Manning a table at an event, meet the candidate, coming out like you did this evening. Go to your representative's office. Schmucker has now opened an office in London Grove 2 times a month. Now, he's not here. It's a staffer, but still, they know you're alive. Greeting at the polls. It makes a difference if you're a Democrat and you get out of the car and you say, oh, there's familiar faces. There's Democrats who can answer a question or at least say hello to me, shake my hand. If I have a question about a referendum issue, it makes all the difference. And for goodness sakes, on election day, if you're available, let your committee person know I can do a 2-hour shift. Or I can get a friend. The two of us will stand out there. Time goes much faster if you have somebody there with you, particularly in the morning from 7 to 9 and in the evening from 5 to 7:30. It's when a lot of people show up. The way you get on the ballot, of course, is a petition. This is a tough job. You've got to get a certain amount of petitions in a 3-week window. And if it's just you or 2 other people going around knocking on doors asking people to fill these out, it can be very discouraging to somebody who wants to run for office for the first time to get 10, 50, 100 signatures. It takes a while because some people are reticent to even sign from your party. They'll say, well, I don't know this person who's running. And you say, well, you're not elected him, you're just getting him on the ballot. But some people, they don't know about petitioning, and so they're a little reticent to sign. That's a big help to a candidate. If you say, I'll carry a petition and get 10 for you. If everybody gets 10, you can get it done in a weekend. Hosting a campaign event, that is just wonderful for the candidate. They can talk to some people, maybe have some checks written to them. When you're a candidate, sometimes you feel like, I'm just alone out here. and when somebody says, I will host a campaign event, I can get 12 people. It just makes all the difference. It makes you feel like, I can do this. People are helping me. I'm just not on an island. Finding a candidate, that's critical. We're always looking, and some people have never thought of themselves as a candidate, but if you know someone who's toying with it, encourage them, help educate them as to what it means. Then the varsity. You're asking people to really put themselves out there, to go knock on doors, to do phone banking. Some people just don't like rejection. I got to tell you, most people are rather polite. They'll answer the door, they'll say, what do you want? You say what you want, and you can pretty much tell this isn't going well, or it's going to be 30 seconds, but you hand them the literature. Once you do a couple, you kind of get in rhythm, and it gets easier. And if you can do it with somebody, if you can take a candidate just around to your neighborhood, take them to 12 houses where the people are friendly faces. Makes a big difference to that candidate. We still have slots opened.
We have 2 vacancies in Highland Township. We have, at the moment, 2 vacancies in Atglen. We have a vacancy in Lower Oxford West.
So I don't know if anybody's here from those places tonight, but committee person, it's asking something, but it's not a crushing burden where you're going to think, this is way over my head. Helping a candidate, you can chair their race or at least serve on their committee. There's just so much to do, so many different tasks that you never thought about, that getting on a committee is a big help to a candidate. And then being the candidate, that's a big step, but I look back at my year as one of the 10 best life experiences I ever had. I didn't think I could do it, and I made it through. I didn't win, but I made it through. These are some issues if you go to a coffee house or a pub and you want to talk about the big issues. These are some things. Does anybody want to give an example of that first one? Brexit, yes. The idea that Britain's pulling out of this cooperative union and they're going to go do it alone. It's getting back to tribalism. We see that in Hungary, where the rest of the world go away. We just want to be Hungary and nobody else. And the markets liked in France that centrist, somewhat centrist candidate won, and Marie Le Pen, maybe not, but Marie Le Pen wins. That's kind of jihad. You're pulling back. Institutionalism versus insurrection. We've seen that in this country with attacks on the courts, and that famous quote that still gives me shivers that the media is the enemy. Yeah. That's Stalin, and he got away with it. And it's the idea that you're shredding institutions that have held this country together. We've seen rural versus urban, particularly with immigration. Many more people are registering. They don't want to be with either party. They're becoming independents, which means that you can't participate in the primary, which means in November, the table's set, the menu's picked. You have no choice. I think you all know about Citizens United and the fact that Sheldon Adelson out there in Nevada can just write $50 million checks and keep candidates afloat, like Newt Gingrich, who otherwise wouldn't have survived the first primary. He can just keep going because the checks just keep coming from big pockets. And there's big pockets on both sides. But the big money has just made it so that even politicians now won't listen to their party leaders. They're going to do what the special interest wants. I mentioned gerrymandering, and the last one, some people now decide where they're going to move based upon the politics of the area. They want to know if the community's red or blue, and so they're already sorting. And we have professional provocateurs who all they do is just want to stir up trouble and make money, but I don't know how they can look at themselves. Alex Jones comes to mind. So I want to end on a light note, and I'm not sure what this means actually, but there's God, and it takes all kinds. And I do want to end with the idea that I think to demonize the other side, I think is dangerous for all of us involved. And it's often you hear politicians exhort you to talk to your neighbor out in the lawn over a pile of leaves over politics. Well, I don't think you just say, well, hell, what were you thinking? I think you got to start small. Small issues, ask them questions. Don't tell them what you think or, make them defensive, but try to draw them out. It might just be one person, but I think it's important we go back to not the way things used to be, but where we're not just so angry at one another that nobody's talking to one another. We're just talking over or shouting or just going to our own little echo chambers and not sure if we're helping the whole cause.